everything I made for my first ever Friendsgiving. I live in a 1-bed apartment, so we don't have a dining room table, so I bought a folding table and 8 folding chairs, and I actually rented the tablecloth, plates, and wine glasses. A few days before Friendsgiving, I got started on the main event, which was 2 ducks. I was doing one of them just a traditional roasted duck, and the other one was going to be like a Chinese Peking style duck. So I heavily salted the skins and let those sit in the fridge to dry out a bit, and then I had to pour boiling water over the Peking duck, which helps to tighten the skin and get a crispier end result. I then brushed it with this syrup vinegar mixture and let it sit in the fridge for another 48 hours. The morning of Friendsgiving, I got started right away on making some bread rolls. I was not planning on making these. I wanted to buy them from the store, but I couldn't find anything I liked at the store, so I was like, I'll just figure out how to make it. I also misread the recipe and didn't add the right amount of flour, but thankfully I've made bread enough times that I just added flour until it felt like it was supposed to, and it all turned out fine. After baking, I brushed them with a honey butter and topped with some flaky salt, and they were to die for. I then got started on our mac and cheese. I don't believe any Thanksgiving is complete without mac and cheese, and I like my mac and cheese a little bit more creamy and stovetop style, so I just did a basic roux with some spices and then melted in some evaporated milk and some cheese. I used cheddar and Gruyere, and then I topped it with some garlic panko breadcrumbs, but I didn't get a video of that. My favorite part of Thanksgiving is always the mashed potatoes, and I firmly believe that palm puree is the best way to do it. It takes a little bit of extra work, but it's honestly not very hard. You just boil the potatoes completely. You don't want any lumps in them. Then you just run the potatoes through either a food mill or a potato ricer, and they come out so fluffy. Then just fold in copious amounts of butter, and I like to infuse my heavy cream, but you absolutely don't have to. I just put some thyme and sage into it and just mix that in. It always comes out so fluffy and perfect and delicious. I also wanted to make some roasted Brussels sprouts just so we had some sort of vegetable there, and so I started by roasting some bacon in the oven. Then when the bacon was crispy, I put the Brussels sprouts in the same pan so that they could roast in the bacon fat. Once they were crispy, I tossed them in a mixture of olive oil, balsamic vinegar, ponzu sauce, and a little bit of honey. Obviously, I put the chopped bacon back into the Brussels sprouts and just mixed that all together, and it was this really delicious, salty, sweet mixture that was just so good. I also like to include a simple salad, not for health reasons, but just to kind of break up all the fattiness. So this had some apples that I cut into matchsticks, some lettuce, dried cranberries, some toasted nuts, and some goat cheese. And for the nuts, I just toasted them in some salted butter with a little bit of allspice until they got nice and warm, and I made a nice apple cider vinaigrette to go with it. I wanted to include cranberry, but I didn't want to make a cranberry sauce, so this is actually a recipe I got from Haley Catalano, and it's literally just canned cranberry jelly, but you make this really good parsley, orange, ginger gremolata and just kind of sprinkle it on top, and I topped it with some rosemary, olive oil, flaky salt, and a little bit of pepper, and it was delicious. Then it was finally time to roast my 2 ducks, so I stuffed the Chinese Peking duck with garlic, scallions, and apples, and then I honestly don't remember what I stuffed the other duck with.
That looks insane.
They both turned out really delicious. I served the Peking duck with some hoisin and cucumbers, and that was it. I would say my very first Friendsgiving was an absolute success.